started this mimer. This is a mimer, Shabbos Parshas Vayetze, Yud Kislev. So Yud Kislev means it's the energy of the Mittler Rebbe, and we definitely will bring in the Chassidus of the Mittler Rebbe as part of this mimer. Let's review what we did last time and keep going. So in Parshas Vayetze, we have this promise to Yaakov, Vihaya, Zaracha, Kiafar, Haaretz, Ufaratsta, Yama, V'keima, Tzvona, V'negba. This limitless Ufaratsta bursting forth of all boundaries. The Rebbe says, this promise is specifically given to Yaakov, not to Avram, not to Yitzchak, specifically to Yaakov. Why? So Chachamim say, because we see by Yaakov the inyan of Shmiras Shabbos. Of course, we know that all the Avos kept the Torah, so obviously Avram kept Shabbos and Yitzchak kept Shabbos. But by Yaakov specifically, we have an allusion in the Pasuk to his Shmiras Shabbos. So that means Shmiras Shabbos by him wasn't just one of all the mitzvahs he kept, it was something special. And because of that, Shmiras Shabbos connects to this idea of Faratzta, limitless, bursting forth. And we brought many, many, many different proofs for this concept. Whoever rejoices with the Shabbos, whoever has pleasure with the Shabbos, whoever eats the 3 meals of the Shabbos, merits this Ufaratzta, Yaakov's inheritance, this limitless energy. And after giving a lot of proofs for this concept, the Rebbe raised 2 questions. The first question the Rebbe raised was, it's sort of interesting or unusual or surprising because Shabbos is associated with time. Shabbos is time-bound, right? From a certain time on Friday to a certain time on Saturday. These are the moments of Shabbos. And even more than that, it's very clear in the Pasuk that Shabbos comes after 6 days a week. So you're really counting those 6 days, and then you have Shabbos. And we know there's a deep connection between that. Like our sages say, Misha Tzarech b'Erev Shabbos, Yochel b'Shabbos. If you work on the 6 days, physically and spiritually, that physical and spiritual work carries over and impacts the Shabbos. That's what you're consuming physically and spiritually on Shabbos. That means Shabbos is very connected to time. It seems strange that Shabbos is the mitzvah that gives us Ufaratzta, bursting forth, limitless, beyond boundaries, beyond time, when Shabbos herself is so time-bound. So that was the first question that the Rebbe spends a lot of time developing. And the second question the Rebbe says is, what is the uniqueness here? Because we're saying, there's a pasuk, Shomer Mishmarti, that Avram kept all the mitzvahs. But we say, no. By Yaakov, this was some specialty of Shabbos, and that's what creates this Ufaratzta. So how do we understand that? I mean, why isn't that good enough giving all the mitzvahs, which include Shabbos? Avram kept all the mitzvahs, including Shabbos, but that wasn't good enough. This Ufaratzta needs for some special, unique emphasis, something different, something special about Shabbos specifically. Not as part of keeping all the mitzvahs, uniquely. So why? What's going on? Why isn't it good enough just to keep Shabbos like you keep kosher and you keep... No, unique focus on Shabbos. Why? What are we talking about? So that was basically the first section of the mimer. And the Rebbe said to understand this idea, we're talking about Shabbos being limitless, creating a limitless energy, but she's time-bound, but she's beyond time. And she's going to create Ufaratzta, which is limitless, beyond energy. So to understand all this, we want to speak about Shabbos. And when we speak about Shabbos, we understand, teach us, there's 3 elements in Shabbos. We have Shabbos night and Shabbos day. Well, Shabbos night and Shabbos day are 2 elements. But we say there are 3 elements because Shabbos day itself, we have the day and then we have the afternoon. As we see, of course, by the day, we have the tefillas of Shacharis and Musaf, we have the Suda of the day of Shabbos, and the afternoon, we have what we call Raiva de Raivin, this very, very special time. Raiva is Aramaic for will, the will of wills, God's ultimate will is shining, right? We said like everything builds, and the end of Shabbos is the climax. I know we discussed this last time, how a lot of us shortchange the day meal, and we think of as the emphasis is on the night meal. But really, the day meal is supposed to be even more special than the night meal because we're building in Kedusha. So we have the night, tefillas and meal. We have even more special, the day, tefillas and meal. And we have even most special, Raiva de Raivin, the will of wills, the meal, what we call Shalosh Sudas, Sudah Shlishis, and the tefillas mincha, of the afternoon of Shabbos. And again, understanding the Rebbe's perspective of how we are building, right? So the night, meal and tefillos, even higher, though we might not think so, but it is. The meal and tefillos by day, and whoa, the highest, that little meal called Shalosh Shudas, and that little tefillah called Mincha, well, that's Raiva Deraiva. That's the highest, that's the greatest energy. So I guess I could ask, since we did mention this last time, if anyone had some guilt over this or did something to mark this idea of Shabbos day and Shalosh Shudas being like more and more amazing special energy. It's fine if everyone says they forgot. But this is the ascension, the ladder of the spirituality of Shabbos. So if you didn't know this before, or if you forgot, you're hearing it a second time, it's worthwhile remembering, and maybe even if you have a Shabbos day meal at home, trying to mark it in some way to show it's more special than Friday night, and then to do something for Shalosh Shudas to mark and express how ultimately special Shalosh Shudas is. And of course, the tefillah.
Do you have to do at least mezonot, or because
for Shalosh Shudas? No, the Alter Rebbe says even a fruit.
Oh, okay.
It's so funny because we really
things that's beautiful.
I love Bnei Chala. Oh my gosh, yes.
We really invest everything into Friday night. Like, like most of the meal that we make is like Friday night food. I feel like Shabbos day, like especially in our community, like no one's really there for the meal except for like maybe a couple kids and I, whatever. And it's just kind of like whatever one or two things, and it's good enough for me. And it really feels a little more Yahtzee design. Sometimes we sit and we talk for an hour, but I don't know. It's usually so much more like Friday night is the emphasis.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, that we're saying here that, I mean, this isn't a chiddush of this mimer. I'm just bringing it in because the mimer is now going to focus on Mincha and Raiva Deraiva and Shalosh Shudas, so let's understand. No, I understand, Leah. So I think what Sterney's saying are very practical tips. She's not saying she made a 5-course meal, for herself and the little children that were home. But she's saying she separated it so it was clear this is the Shabbos day meal, this is Shalosh Shudas. They sang the nigun for the Shalosh Shudas meal. There was just marking it. I don't think our bechain has to be make an elaborate day meal that no one's going to eat because no one's even going to be there to eat it. But in some way recognize it's more special. So maybe, I think what I used to do at some point, but I don't remember, is I would make like a something, like a salad or something like that I would not serve Friday night, and I would deliberately save for the day meal. So it's not like courses and courses no one's going to eat, but it's a special something for the day meal. I think I used to do that at some point. And, similarly for Shalosh Shudas, you don't have to have a lot of food, but maybe you could have something special, like a special cake.
So I have a question. What if I don't want to wash after the Shabbos Kiddush, and instead I want to wash for the Seudah Shlishit?
So what in essence you're doing is you're eating your day meal later.
Basically, because I stay there at the Kiddush, and we eat so much junk, crackers and all that, and I come home, I'm hungry to go and wash and eat again, so I usually
nowadays you don't have that much time, because if you're gonna come home at 2, and when are you gonna eat your meal? 3:30? I mean, you don't have that much time anyway.
Yeah. So you
in
mean
essence,
that
what you're doing is you're eating your Shalosh Shudas first. By Kiddush, you ate your Shalosh Shudas, and afterwards, when you came home and you washed, that was your day meal. So you got both meals in a backwards order, and we mentioned that last week, and I said yes, that
okay.
That's okay.
I wasn't here last week. Okay.
Oh, so a Shabbos party at Shalosh Shudas time. Okay, so that's a nice concept. Again, who you're making it special for the kids. So if you're singing a nigga, you're making it special for the kids. If you're making a Shabbos party, you're making it special. Something to try to tap into the energy. Something to try to say, wait, this is special energy, and within the limitations of my reality and my family's reality and my community's reality, what can I do to tap into that energy? What makes sense? And I love the idea of just like, singing a niggin and like this is special. And we don't normally do this, but we do this because it's Shalosh Shudas. It's a really special time. So we want to capture that energy. That's a great way to do it. Calorie free. It didn't cost you extra time Friday cooking for nobody, but it really expresses the energy. We're making a special party that really is like, again, connecting it because this is so special, because this is the most special time, because this is Riva Derivin. That's why we're having this special party, to try to give that.
I'll try to give that focus. That's a really beautiful idea.
To give that focus.
It really is incredible energy. Like it's the Shabbos party energy. It really feels like the highest time of Shabbos. Yeah, it's Ravid, but it's like there's a special unity and like whenever we do all these fun things by Shabbos party and for Kiafar in the summer and. There's so many ways to like tap into energy, sharing special stories in a Shabbos party.
Okay. So you don't need all the other people around. Whoever's around, those are the people that you're going to share that energy with. Whoever is there is there.
Everyone likes to show up for Shabbos party.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you have a full crowd for Shalosh Shudas. Not a problem. It's a Shabbos day meal. That is a little skimpy, the attendance. But that's okay. It's you. Whatever you're doing to mark it and to know it and to remember it and to say, okay, Hashem, this is the reality you want me to have. Baruch Hashem, not complaining at all. And I'm trying. I'm doing what I can to know that this not just got to be a design, but this is a special time. That's basically what we're saying. I think there were a lot of very good practical suggestions here of how to make it special, wherever you are and whoever you're with, how to make it special. It doesn't have to mean foods that you don't make. It doesn't have to mean people that are not home. Just making it special yourself, or just like a lot of times framing it. Like I know for my children, always every year Shavuos, I would always tell them again and again and again, walking to shul, walking back from shul, we're gonna have this big party because we got this huge special gift. We got the Torah. It's such a gift. We're celebrating, and every year I would say that. And of course, for my children, they're young. That milchak, kiddush before the Fleshek meal is always so special, and it's because we're celebrating. We're so excited because we got the Torah. As you keep telling that, you feel it, and they feel it, and it gets in your heads, it gets in their heads. So it's like a lot of times taking what we're doing, but just framing it in a way to really appreciate what's going on. All right. So the Rebbe says, continuing, there is a different energy. There's a different energy the night of Shabbos. There's a different energy the day of Shabbos. There's a different energy the afternoon of Shabbos, Riva de Rivin, Mincha time, Shalosh Shudas time. And of course, as we're saying, that is the highest energy. So now, the Rebbe says, let's look at the tefillah of Mincha. Right? We're going to look at some of those words that we say, rattle them off when we daven Mincha and Shabbos, and understand a little bit of this power, what's going on when we unpack these words. Always, the Rebbe focuses on things that we never think about. we do, but we never think. And it's like, oh, really? Wow. We look at the tefillah. We're reading the word. Ata echad, v'shimcha echad, umika amcha ki Yisrael, gai echad ba'aret. You're one. Your name is one. Who is like your nation, the Jews, the one nation in the world? Tiferes Gedula, Bateres Yeshua, Yom Menucha Kedusha, and we keep going and going and going and going. And the Bible will keep going with all of these terms. I have here two questions. The first question is, why do we keep seemingly saying the same thing again and again and again? I mean, Chas v'shalom, we know it's not redundant, but it sounds like we're repeating ourselves. Also, why are we emphasizing here in this tefillah of Mincha the idea of menucha, of peace? Like that's unique to Mincha time. The Rebbe says, you think Menucha, if we want to say it's unique to something, is unique to Friday night. Why would Friday night feel more Menuchadik than Shalosh Shudas? Why would the night of Shabbos have more energy of Menucha than the end of Shabbos?
If you're running around on Friday, you need a contrast.
Exactly. Very simple, very obvious. You're coming from all the hustle bustle of the week, and of course for us, the prep of Shabbos and prep of Shabbos, you light your Shabbos candles, you sit down. Hopefully your house got cleaned up, that you look around and it looks great. If not, you can do that also after Shabbos comes in, but we all know what that feels like. We all know that, like, okay, ready or not, it came, and Baruch Hashem, and we can breathe, and we can relax, and nothing we can do now anyway. Menucha. We all feel it. That's the natural feeling. As Leah said, the contrast from Chol to Shabbos, from the weekday, Shabbos, from the Erev Shabbos intensity to Shabbos, you really feel that menucha Friday night. But in the tefillah Friday night, we don't talk about menucha. We talk about menucha by mincha, by raiva. When we're already way into it, right? We hopefully, maybe got a nap Friday night, maybe got a good long sleep Friday night, like as Rachel said, we ate lots of junk over Shabbos. Like we were deep into our menucha by the time it comes to mincha. Like that's not when we're suddenly appreciating it. But in the tefillah, it seems to imply that no, there's a special menucha specifically by this time, this final piece of Shabbos energy. And what is that menucha? Okay, you're not going to start answering that question. We're going to go to the first question that we said, which was, it seems like we keep talking about the same thing again and again and again and again. And the Rebbe says, of course not. Though, in a sense, yes. Because what we're going to see is there's many sets here of 3. So within each set, it's 3 separate entities. But these sets, we do keep repeating. So the Mittler Rebbe, as we said, this is Yud Kislev. So this is the energy of the Mittler Rebbe. This is the Mittler Rebbe's Chag HaGeula. So the Mittler Rebbe said that these phrases of the Tfilas Mincha of Shabbos are really expressing the energy of Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes. If we look at the davening to see how we unpack that, right? The first set of 3 we looked at was Ata Echad, Shimcha Echad, Umi Ka'amcha Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz, right? You are one, your name is one, and who is like Israel, this one nation in the world. How in the world is this Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes? Don't worry, we're going to explain. Ata Echad, you are one, that's Chesed. What does Ata Echad have to do with Chesed? Because this idea of you is idea of revelation, meaning you, right there. If I can say you and don't say a name, that means you're in a state of revelation that I could point to, and it's you, second person, it's you. So you represents revelation, and Chesed is this movement of giving, is this flow of energy, is this flow of revelation. So Ata Echad, you, that's Chesed, that's revelation. Shimcha Echad, your name is one, that's Gvura. Now, why is Shimcha Echad Gvura? Because a name expresses or implies that there's someone else. You don't need a name if it's only you. So if there's someone else for whom I need a name, that means there's an element of Gevura. Gevura meaning tzimtzum, meaning limitation, constriction. Because if there's someone else, I'm constricted that there's someone else. And if I have a name, there's someone else, because that's why I need a name. So therefore, a name implies constriction. So Ata, you, revelation, Chesed. Shimcha, there's a name, there's someone else, that means a constriction on you. That's why you have a name, that means Gevura. So Ata Echad Chesed, Shimcha Echad Gevura. The Rebbe here actually unpacks this idea of Shimcha Echad as Gevura with a lot of details. And he gives 3 reasons why Shimcha Echad means Gevura. The first one is, as we said, the fact that there's a name means there's someone else that needs you to have a name. And the fact that there's someone else means you got farfetched. You got limited, so there's an else around that needs you to have a name. So that's why your name implies, ultimately, there's a Gevura, a tzimtzum, a constriction. Second, if we're talking about a name and we're relating to you on the level of name, that's a limited revelation, meaning it's very interesting how Hasidus goes back and forth on this idea of a name, because very often in many places, the Rebbe will say how a name reflects essence, right? And that's why names are so important, because a name reflects essence. That's why we call people their Jewish name. A name pulls out essence. At the same time, a name is a name. It's not you. Like very often, if we speak of Ata Tetzaveh, right? And, oh, this is Ata, this is you, this is higher than name, this is essence, deeper than name. So the fact that you're relating on the level of Shimcha, V'Shimcha Echad, your name is one, that already means this is a constriction, because if the energy you're giving is from your name, that's not you. It's, as we call it, a ha'ara, a shine, a glow, a ray. It's a lesser expression, which means it's Gvura, it's tzimtzum. So that's the second reason that V'Shimcha Echad implies Gevura.
Far away. So like when someone's standing next to you, You just talk to them. You don't say their name.
You don't have to
When are
say
you
name.
calling them when they're far away?
So that would be like we're saying Ata is second person and the name would already be like third person. I, you, he. He would be like the name. So your third person means it's distant, it's remote. If you're right there,
Yeah.
I don't need that name. That's a good point. The third point the Rebbe says is a name means there's some combination of letters that got together to form a word. That's your name. And once we're already talking about this configuration of letters, that again means minimization, right? Each letter is minimization of it's a reflection of the energy, but it's also a minimization of the energy. And it's coming together in a certain pattern, a certain form. This letter followed by this letter, by this letter. That's a name, that's a word. That means a specific and minimized energy. Like hischalkus. There's a division here because of all the different letters. So again, the very fact that there's a name means there's someone else, which means you got minimized. If your energy is coming through the name, it means it's a weaker energy. That's the energy of a name. It's not you, it's the name. And if it's a name, it means it's hischalkus, it's differentiation. That's minimization. So on all three levels, shimcha echad, gvura. So ata echad, ata is giloy, is revelation, chesed. Shimcha echad, shimcha, as we explained on three levels, is tzimtzum, is gevura, is constriction, gevura. And the third phrase, Umi ka'amcha Yisrael goy echa ba'aretz. Goy echa ba'aretz is the Jewish people. The Jewish people are tiferes. Tiferes is like the kav hemtza'i, the middle beam which pierces all levels. And that's the Jew. And there's a pasuk the Rebbe brings. Yisrael asher b'cha espa'er. Yisrael, in whom I will glorify myself. Espa'er is the same letters, jumbled, as tiferes. So Yisrael, the Jew, us, we're Hashem's tiferes. We're Hashem's beauty. So, ata echad, chesed, shimcha echad, gvura, umi ka'amcha Yisrael goyecha ba'aretz, tiferes. Then guess what? We have another three. As I said, we're going to see in this tefillah many sets of this threefold concept. Chesed, gvura, tiferes. What's the next set of three? Eres gedula, ateres Yeshua, yom menucha kedusha. Okay? That's, if you just think of the tefillah, those are the next words. So how is that chesed, gvur, tiferes? Well, tiferes gedula, we would think tiferes gedula should be tiferes, but we're not the Mittel Rebbe. So what do we know? Tiferes gedula is chesed because gedula is chesed, like we have in our davening every day. Gedula, gevura, tiferes, hod. We go through all the spheros, kol, yesod, melucha, malchus, right? We go through all the spheros there. So gedula, whenever we say gedula, gadol, it always means chesed, because again, gadol means like big, great, like intense energy of giving. So the word gedula, gadol, always means chesed. So tiferes gedula, chesed. Next phrase, ateres Yeshua. Ateres Yeshua has to mean gevura. Why does ateres Yeshua have to mean gevura? Two reasons that are, of course, very connected. Ateres Yeshua means the crown of salvation. The Rebbe says, if you're ever in a state of having salvation, that means you had an opposition that you had to overcome. Like every miracle is presupposing there was some trial, there was some stress, there was some limitation, there was some problem, and then we had the miracle. So if we're having a Yeshua, ateres Yeshua, there's the crown of salvation. Again, didn't have to use the word salvation. Salvation means there's an opposition. There's a force we had to overcome, and we overcame it and had our salvation. So that means gevura, opposition. Not only gevura because there's opposition, but the Rebbe says, if there was opposition and you overcame the opposition, that means you were also using gevura. So there was a situation of gevura, that which opposed you, and there was your gevura that you overcame the opposition. So from both ends, ateres Yeshua means gevura, right? So we had ateres gedula, chesed, ateres Yeshua, gevura, and then going on, yom menucha ukedusha l'amcha b'sata, tiferes. Why is that tiferes? Basically because of that key word that we already know is a key word, because we already questioned it before, which is the word menucha. The Rebbe says, menucha means a state of shalom. Menucha is peace, is shalom, tranquility, calmness. And that specifically is tiferes. As we probably know the coordinates, how chesed is this intense giving, and gevura is this withholding, withdrawal, discrimination, whatever words you're going to use for it, judgment on the other side. And then you have that perfect place in the middle, the centered place. And that centered place, that perfect blend of the giving of chesed, of the discrimination of gevura, that's Tiferes. And that's where there's shalom. Like we know, Tiferes, shalom, menucha, is that middle being that pierces through every level. It can penetrate everything because it's the point of truth of everything. That's menucha. So we had in our first words, Ata echad, shimcha echad, umikam cheshal goy echad ba'aretz, chesed gvur Tiferes. Then we had the next phrase, right? Tiferes gedula, Ataras Yeshua, Yom Menucha Kedusha, Chesed Gevur Tiferes. Are we done? Of course we're not done. The tefillah keeps going. Avraham Yagel, Yitzchak Yiranim, Yaakov Yenuchavo. Well, that's pretty obvious. Chesed Gevur Tiferes, right? We got Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and we know Avram symbolizes Chesed, Yitzchak symbolizes Gevura, and Yaakov symbolizes Tiferes. He doesn't have to explain to us Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov is Chesed Gevur Tiferes. That's a given. We know that Avram was the embodiment of Chesed, and Yitzchak was the embodiment of Gvura, and Yaakov is the embodiment of Tiferes. So we don't have to explain that. But what the Rebbe points out, again, keeping in mind our question, why Raiva de Raivin, do we now focus on Menucha? Shouldn't that have been the Friday night issue? The Rebbe says, Avram Yagel, Yitzchak Yiranim, Yaakov Uvanav Yenuchuvo. They're resting on it. It's Menucha. This quality of Menucha, this is the quality of Tiferes. This is this ultimate energy, and that's why it's connected to Yaakov. Are we done? No, we're not done. Menuchas ahava nedava. Well, ahava nedava is obviously chesed. Ahava is love, which is chesed, and nedava is the idea of like generosity, beneficence, giving. Well, that's chesed. So menuchas ahava nedava, chesed. Menuchas shalom hashke uvetach. That can't be gevura, right? No, it's not gevura. That would be really confusing. That is Tiferes. As we already said, Menucha and Shalom is the idea of Tiferes. Shalom is the idea of Hiskalos. Hiskalos means inclusion, the blending of the energies. Tiferes is, as we said, the blending of the giving of Chesed, perfectly balanced with the discrimination of Gevura. Menuchas emes ve'emuna. Emes ve'emuna, that has to be Gevura. Why do you think the Rebbe connects emuna to Gevura?
Would be that it takes inner gevura, inner strength to produce emuna despite the odds.
You added something the Rebbe didn't say, which is a very, very, very interesting point. And you also went in the direction the Rebbe said. So Leah really, it's really interesting because she added a point that the Rebbe doesn't say, that it takes gevura to see it, which I like. I think that's also a very, very good chap. But she also in the direction the Rebbe was saying. Very interesting. I thought it was a very interesting concept, but makes very logical if you think about it. Like, I don't think if I would say emuna, chesed gevura tiferes, we would automatically think gevura. But if we know emuna is gevura, it's not so hard to figure it out. The Rebbe is saying emuna is by definition coming in a situation of gevura. Of course, we're ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim, and we know it and we live it. But when we're really feeling our emuna and stretching in our emuna and experiencing our emuna, well, we all know it's in a hard situation. Not that Hashem should give us hard situations for us to stretch in our emuna, but I mean, those are the facts on the table. That's the reality. Right? When we speak of, like Chaisara, right? The end of the Sikha of this week, Chaisara, where what's the, obviously you have so many punchlines in the Sikha, you can't even start counting, right? Where the Rebbe says, Shluchim, you finished the beginning of your work, Yasher Kayach, the middle of your work, Yasher Kayach, you completed your work, Yasher Kayach, and the only thing left is Kabbalah Samachal L'Dei Ha'am. That's a pretty big, intense point. At the end of the Sikha, the Rebbe says, so therefore, we have to go to the real Shliach, the ultimate one, aka Hashem himself, and say, Hashem, that's it, we're done. You got to bring Mashiach. You have so much pleasure from the Jews in Galus. Done. We're no more tzei, no more us leaving your table, Mashiach. So what does the Rebbe mean by that? The Rebbe means that there's tremendous strengths that only can be accessed in Golus. And we're saying, Hashem, we don't care. Beautiful. You had 1900 plus years of that amazing gevura that you got out of us, that amazing emuna, and we're done. But there is this very strong connection that when we're in a situation of chesed, not that we don't have emunah, of course we have emunah, but it's not like that's what's coming out. When we're in this situation of tiferes, of shalom, of course there's emunah and appreciation, and we love you, Hashem, we feel so loved by you, Hashem. But when we're in a situation of gevura, when we don't see, when we have to pull it out of ourselves, that's when the emunah is so shining in us. So that's why the Rebbe says that specifically the words of emunah in this model of chesed or tiferes, that's gevura. And also, as Leah is saying, which I thought was a very beautiful point, that gevura is strength. And that's really what's enabling us to access that emunah despite the concealments.
Gvura is like the only example I can think of now is music, because I was doing some hollow practice this week, so it's kind of but it's like in music there's a concept of the seventh note. It's like the last note before the end note, and it's like an incomplete note that makes you like want to finish the circle, like it leaves you hanging, and you can't do anything else besides like finish the last note. So Gevura is like that. I think.
And
it's
that
like
would be leading you to the emunah then?
the solving of the problem, meaning you can't stay in the problem.
Right. You can't stay in the problem. And there's something that's like pulling on you that you got to move. And that movement of Gevura is what's enabling you to access your emunah. So if I'm understanding the concept of music, which I never heard before, so I maybe didn't understand it, but if I'm understanding it, I think the parallelism you're saying is just like this note is like evoking the completion. This situation of Gevura is evoking that emunah. There's a lot of nuances of Gevura within this point the Rebbe is making. Like the fact that you don't see is a Gevura. We have emunah, it's like Chassidus says, our emunah begins where our seichel ends, right? We have an emunah, we have a mitzvah to know Hashem. That's a mitzvah to know Hashem. And we have a mitzvah to believe in Hashem. And Chassidus says your belief begins where your knowledge ends. Meaning, what are we taking so much time to understand Hashem? We're supposed to believe him. Belief is simple. What do I need all this information for? Because you have an obligation to understand. And at the point where your brain no longer computes, you can no longer understand. Oh, now you have another mitzvah. Don't worry. Now you have a mitzvah of hamanas elokus, of believing in Hashem. So the knowledge is not diverting me from the emunah. It's the road to which I'll come to that real emunah. So the gevura, which I think actually Journey's concept of the note, if I'm understanding it, works really well here. The gevura is compelling me and propelling me to the emunah. Gevura, which is the not seeing of Hashem, because you need that not seeing of Hashem to have emunah in him. And then like overcoming that situation is the emunah. That's what leads to the emunah. So there's this very, very deep connection between gevura and emunah. And that's why I'm saying that's one of the pleasures of galus. That's one of the milas of our situation, that we're ma'aminim, and we're ikvasta de meshicha, and we're the heels, and we're sleepwalkers and sleep talkers, and barely know anything and barely feel anything, but we believe. We're the true believers. We're going into fire for Hashem. That's all almost like the natural consequence to Journey's concept, like it's compelled by the gevura. And that's why we say, and there's a lot of Chassidus that says this, that our generation has an emunah, has a mesiras nefesh, has a bittul, has a kabbalas ol, that higher generations didn't have, right? Usually the comparison is by Matan Torah, or generally by the bias, by the time of the Beis HaMikdash. By the time of the Beis HaMikdash, the Jews saw Hashem. You went to the Beis HaMikdash, you saw godliness. They understood Hashem, they saw Hashem, they were refined, they were spiritual, they were holy, they understood. But we, who don't really understand, who don't really know, who don't really feel, who are not very refined, who are not very spiritual, pretty coarse, pretty physical. I don't know if those souls above looking down at us would even recognize we're Jews, let alone from Jews, who knows? But we have an emunah. a Mesiras Nefesh, a Bittul, a Kabbalas Ol, that they couldn't have. They saw too much to have it. We see so little, we can have it. So the Gevura is really compelling the Emunah. And we have this order, because again, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet. Menuchas Ahava, the Chesed, Menuchas Emunah, the Gevura, Menuchas Shalom, the Tiferet. I'm going to add one more question to the pile, and then we're going to end at this point. So what we've seen here is there's an imprint, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet. The Rebbe proved that very clearly. The Rebbe also showed us this emphasis on the Menucha. Why? We definitely don't know yet. And then after the trios of Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, and Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, right? We had it 4 times. After that, we end off with a phrase. What's the phrase we end off with? Menucha shlema she'ata roitze bo. And we're like, huh? We already spoke about Menucha this and Menucha that and Menucha this. Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, our nice model of 3. And now we just added one that's not part of the 3. It's like the extra. And what is it saying? And what is the point? And what are we gaining beyond Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet 4 times over this Menucha Shlema? What are we achieving here?